at the Star in Frisco. In fact, we're inside the Omni Frisco Hotel at the Star at the lobby level, and you're looking out over a lot of the fanfare that you have just outside Ford Center at the Star as we get set for the Conference USA Women's Basketball Championships, along with the men, getting things started with the first round tomorrow as seeds 5 through 12 will be doing battle, and we'll go ahead and flip it around. Doug Ripley with you right over here. Hi, everybody. And over to our right, Malcolm Butler from Louisiana Tech, also Jason Corriher of Marshall, also the Sports Information Director of the Thundering Herd, as well as calling the road broadcast when Jake Griffith is handling the action at home. Jason Baker, back on the horn, is the voice of the Lady Eagles of Southern Miss, and then Brett Williams, in his second year at Western Kentucky, is the voice of the Lady Toppers. Good to have you all here with us, and again, apologies for holding you all up for a little while, but thank you all for taking me up on my last second offer. I'm going to mainly stay off camera here just because I don't want to scare too many of the folks at home, and they're used to my yammering over the course of this year. But we were talking about here when nobody could hear us earlier was about how this seemed like a perfect opportunity this year. Was the perfect time to be able to bring everybody together and talk shop, not only preview this year's championship and talk about the regular season that was and another wild one here in Conference USA, but give everybody a little bit more of a feel of what it's like behind the scenes, some of your trials, your tribulations on the road, and to kind of give everybody a better feel for not only in terms of all that good stuff, but to get better connected with your broadcast as you start your work this week here in the Conference USA Championship. So happy to have you all with us, and again, don't be surprised if we see a lot more friendly faces joining us here in a little bit.
Well, we appreciate you setting this up, Doug. I think this is a great idea. This league doesn't get as much coverage on the women's side as it deserves, especially as phenomenal a year as it had, especially with the top 5 or 6 teams. So this is a lot of fun. I'm excited about being here this week. All 5 of us are used to controlling the airwaves for the 2.5 hours we're on our broadcast. We're not used to sharing airtime, so we're going to see if we can share the basketball here for the next hour or so.
And as I mentioned earlier, I think, again, the championship atmosphere you see here, I think, is maybe surprising. And for those maybe who haven't been here, it's a really exciting place to play. You have 2 courts going on at the same time. And, Doug, I think one thing you mentioned that maybe hopefully we'll get into, some of the storylines this year that I think that we've seen around the league, I think the thing that comes to mind for me are the surprising players, some of the role players that we've seen step up this year. The 2 that come to mind for me, Charity Savage for Middle Tennessee, Whitney Creech for WKU, 2 players that I think it's fair to say were role players a season ago. I think those are the 2 most improved players in our conference, and who will step up this year in this tournament. And I think you're going to see that, and I think you have to have that to emerge victorious here and get that automatic qualifying spot.
Well, and even to play off that, I talked with Doug back across the Twitter sphere, I guess you should call it, a couple of weeks ago. And
we'll go with that.
Just kind of said, this league may be a 3-bid league this year. Maybe, just maybe, the chips fall right. We'll see. I think a lot of it's got to do with what's going to happen inside that Ford Center over the next couple of days, but also to take off the role players. What about this freshman class that's across this Conference USA? Man, there are some absolute talented individuals. The one that jumps off the page to me is Katia Gallegos for UTEP, has been just a phenomenal point guard as a freshman, leading her team to the 7th seed in this tournament. They've really been good. There's just some depth across this entire league from the freshman class.
Yeah, I mean, this is just an exciting opportunity.
Sorry there, Brett. I think the reset I had to do to make this thing work killed your gain. This was not done intentionally, I assure you that.
Hey, we're on the business of testing. There we go.
Now you're red hot. Okay, there we go.
Yes, indeed. No, I think this is going to be a really exciting week because I think all 12 teams that are going in on our women's side of this bracket should have a good feeling about their chances. I mean, we've seen so many upsets from weekend 1. I remember some of the first couple of games we already saw, these are some teams that are going to be for real. Charlotte going down to Birmingham, beating UAB. I think that was the time when we realized ODU was for real, going into Murfreesboro and winning handedly, and that just set off a cascade of events that have happened to this point. And so whether you're a La Tech team as a 12 seed playing well right now. You're a North Texas 11 seed that's got essentially the home games here this week, all the way to the top where you've got, under the recent bracketologies, 3 teams potentially getting, as you said, Jason, into the NCAA tournament. So there's so much opportunity this week, and it's going to be really fun to see how it all plays out.
Now, if there's any kind of technical difficulties that we're dealing with, unfortunately with the internet speeds at a hotel, you typically don't get the kind of speeds that we're accustomed to,
Right.
and we're quite frankly spoiled when we're on campus. So if there's any issues that come up, by all means let us know. Otherwise, I will get anything that we come up here. We have recording right now, so we'll be able to put it back on the air on post once we're all said and done here. Guys, what do you all think is probably the most surprising storyline of this year? I mean, like something that when you came in, you didn't really see this happening at all the last couple of months in regular season play.
I'm not sure. I mean, I would not have believed if you'd have told me at the beginning of the year there would be 6 teams in the top 70 or 65 of the RPI. I mean, again, I think since we joined the league, Louisiana Tech in 2013, this is we've had some really good years where there's been 1, 2, 3 really good teams, but to have 6 that are that high in the RPI, I think says a lot about this league. And like I said, I mean, you even have some teams that are seeds 7 through 12 who are really coming in and playing well now. I mean, Hales is back for Southern Miss, which I know is huge for them. And, we feel like we've been playing really well down the stretch. But I just think the depth of this conference this year, especially in the top 6, is probably the biggest thing that has been a pleasant surprise for me.
I think along with Savage and Creech, what we talked about earlier with 2 of the players that I think have really become 2 of the most improved players in our conference. Doug, I think it might be your Monarchs. I mean, just to have, Old Dominion was right there at the top. I mean, for the bulk of the conference schedule, it felt like Rice, of course, always there, but you guys were right there with the Owls and right there to the end, pretty much. I think you look at Old Dominion. It's there's not one scorer that you lock in on. It's a very balanced attack. It's a very athletic lineup, and that's something that I think is going to be really exciting to see play out here this weekend. How does that match up really? 3 or 4 games in a row. We'll see how that goes.
I think it's the parity of the 2 groups. I think the top portion of this league, from 5 to 1 that are left still playing, I think could beat anybody on any given day. Literally start with Rice, go all the way down to UAB. I think it's a 50-50 split. We'll see how the ball bounces. And then I think from 6 to 12, I think you could say the same thing amongst those teams. I think every single one of those teams on any given day, just look at Malcolm and Louisiana Tech. On Saturday, it's a 1-possession game with about 30 seconds to go in Bowling Green, Kentucky. After they had traveled, I believe, on Thursday as well, they finished on the road 2 times. It's one thing to do it once on the road. It's another thing to have a 48-hour turnaround and to play that way on the road again.
Yeah.
You're just talking about some severe parity amongst this league, and it's been evident not just over the last month. It's really been evident from January on.
Of all things, and I would name everything that has already been said. I think one other thing to bring up, too, is the metamorphosis and the story of the Rice Owls, because at the end of the day, we're all still chasing Rice.
Yeah.
Regular season champs, tournament champs last year.
Got to go through them.
You got to go through Rice to win it. And I think coming into this season, a lot of us expected that Rice was just going to pick up exactly where it left off last year. They kept Agumake, they kept Mulkey, and you figure, okay, they're not really going to drop off. But all of a sudden, they're kind of limping their way through the non-conference and realizing that, maybe Nicole DeMarco and Lauren Grigsby were bigger losses than we thought. Then all of a sudden they get to conference play. They figure it out for a really long time, and everyone's wondering, are they still invincible? And then they go to Norfolk, they lose. They go to Charlotte, they lose. And now we're all thinking, okay, it's all going to fall apart. And they haven't lost since. And now, once again, we're trying to break through that ceiling. So, credit to Tina Langley and her team for finding a way to get themselves back into the hunted position. And, we'll see this week if anyone's able to take them out.
Here's the crazy thing, though, guys. We go into this tournament. I think the 2 teams that might be playing the best basketball out of the group might be the 11 and the 12 seed. Yeah. I think Louisiana Tech's playing good ball. And North Texas, they really gave Old Dominion a good game. They played. They didn't have a good go around against Charlotte, but they've shown at times they played Rice tough. They've played a lot of good teams tough the last few weeks. They played a lot of close games all year long. Had been on the losing end. Not to mention just about the entirety of their of their rotation is totally different in conference play than what they dealt with in non-conference play. But Jaylee Mitchell's got them cooking at just the right time despite all that adversity they've gone through.
This time of the year, it's who still wants to be playing. And,
Yeah.
and most of the times, your 11 and a 12 seed, they're ready to hang it up and go home. But
Not
I
this
mean, I
year.
can speak for Louisiana Tech. I mean, our kids are excited. I mean, we've gone 4-4 down the stretch, and all 4 games have been decided by one possession. All 4 games we've lost, and again, you know, we had Rice on the ropes at home, led them by a point with 14 seconds left, or by 2 points with 14 seconds left. They hit a layup. We go to overtime, and they beat us. You know, Saturday at Western Kentucky, we're up 1 with about 50 seconds to play. They get a loose ball, get a second opportunity, hit a layup, go up, and then we can't hit some shots. So again, we feel like we're playing our best basketball of the year. Our kids are excited about being here. So I mean, you're right. I mean, at this time of the year, anything can happen. So I'd be surprised if there's not an upset or two early in this tournament.
And I think just to pick up on what Brett said about Rice, to me, one of the most amazing things about them is especially with Erica Ogumike, you're not talking about an elite 3-point shooter.
Right.
That's not her game. Yet they still find a way to get that consistent production. And yeah, they do have Nancy Mulkey. That's 6'9". That's just not something. Forget our league.
Yeah,
That's
you
not
don't see
in
it.
women's basketball across. I mean, you're just not going to see that every day. And so it's such a unique challenge when you're playing them. How do you consistently get points in the paint? How do you get a free throw line? How do you get those shots that you're going to need to you have to do something inside. You can't just sit out there and we know Doug knows the Thundering Herd likes to pitch it from the from the cheap seats.
And they're pretty good
right?
at it.
Pretty good at
too.
it. But still you have to have that bounce there. It's so hard against Rice to do that. And again, I just think those two players, and they have lots of players, of course. They have a ton of players, but those two really make it go, and Ogumike just does it in so many ways apart from the 20-foot game.
Well, Ogumike and Mulkey on that pick and roll are almost impossible
Absolutely.
to stop. That's what they did against us in the fourth quarter. I mean,
Yeah.
Ogumike had like 4 points going into the fourth quarter, and I said on the air early in the fourth, she is going to take over. Can Louisiana Tech stop it? And they learned that pick and roll, and it's almost impossible to defend because you don't even have to make a precise pass when you're throwing to 6'9". You just throw it up to an area. She's going to go get it, and she's good at finishing it. Or if you don't guard it right, Ogumike comes off the screen, and she's scoring. So, I mean, they are just so difficult to stop on that end, and then they're so difficult to score against on the other end.
And I'll say this about them as well. We played them without Ogumike. I think that was to their benefit. I think it made all the players around her better. They understood how to play without her.
Yep.
And now the rest of you guys that have got to face them, it may be us too, who knows. You're going to have to face them with a healthy Ogumike right now.
Yeah, but you know what? They missed Ogumike for a couple of games. They also missed Mulkey for about 2 weeks when she got injured at Charlotte, and that totally brought their game. That took the air out of their sails. The Niners crushed them, and they had a hard time winning the next few weeks. I think those 2 weeks without Mulkey might have been even bigger than the Ogumike ones because by the time Mulkey came back, they seem like they've really found their stride again. And big part of that is it's not just Ogumike or Mulkey. They've needed some help to be able to get over those tough times, and I think they found it with Sydney Wiggins. I think they found it at point guard with Jasmine Smith. As time's gone on, she's gotten a little steadier. They're still high on the turnover count, but she's gotten steadier at the point. And then Lauren Schwartz. I'll tell you what, one of a number of really impressive freshmen this year in Conference USA.
Doug, and just to jump in, I think this is the deepest freshman class this year. I mean, we're sitting there going through the all-freshman team, and I felt pretty good. I put Savannah Wheeler at Marshall. I felt pretty good about her chances.
Yeah.
Didn't have a great finish to the regular season, so you're like, I don't know. But I mean, I just feel like there were so many freshmen this year that had tremendous impacts on their team, and I think the future of our conference and the competitiveness that you're going to see not only this weekend but moving forward is going to be really exciting. Sure.
Yeah, Lauren Schwartz is honestly the future of Rice with them losing Ogumike this year. I mean, Ogumike wasn't even that impactful a game that we played at their place, which was early in the conference season. She did kind of go into takeover mode, as Malcolm pointed out, late, and that's something you always have to watch with them. But, I mean, Schwartz was carrying the load, rebounding, shooting, and the whole bit. And when you do that, you're going to give yourself a chance to win more times than not. And
she wants the ball when it matters most.
Absolutely.
That was a big difference why they got over the hump. It was, again, against Old Dominion on Saturday, I thought Schwartz was the big key to that game. She was fearless out there start to finish, and you had to account for her down the stretch, which made it a lot easier in those deep shot clock scenarios for Ogwumike and Mulkey to shine because you had to account for Schwartz.
Well, and I think, too, one of the best questions to ask in this building over the next couple of days is these freshmen across Conference USA, how big of a stage does it make them shine? Does it make them shy away? How do they play? I mean, I'll repeat her again, but Katia Gallegos, guys, she scored 28 points against us early in the Conference USA season. If I was a betting man, which I'm not, I would have bet my money on UTEP being in the top 4 of this league. That's how good they looked. And if you think about what she does, which is penetration and kick out with Zetz on the outside, they've got, 4 shooters on the outside around the perimeter. They are as dangerous of a 7 seed in this tournament as maybe we've had in the last decade in Conference USA. And, how do those freshmen handle this stage? This is such a different beast than what we deal with. It's different gyms, different rims, different scenarios, less time on the court. How do they handle it? Which freshman steps up across this league? Savannah Wheeler tomorrow, how does she play tomorrow against Southern Miss?
And Florida Atlantic, the 10 seed. I mean, they're dangerous enough that with the way that they defend, the way they're able to force turnovers and get points off of that, with players like Crystal Prim. I mean, I know they've been without Loda of Veka Aho for a little while there with the issue she had with her back. I think Jim Jaber said it was a stress fracture in her back when we talked a couple of weeks ago. That's kept her out. Glenisha Harkless has been out, but they've got a number of young players, one of the many young rosters, and they seem to be pretty fearless out there. And that I think being fearless in this environment, when you turn around and play in postseason play, that really gives you a nice leg up on the competition.
And how much more excited do you think they're going to be this year to not have to play with 6 players? They may have some injuries, but you saw them last year, Doug, in the first round playing with 6, and now they may have 8 or 9 or something, but I mean, FAU is absolutely a program on the rise, and I think we all knew it when Jaber took over that this would eventually get to this point, and now next year I think the Owls have a lot circled. But as you said, we'll see what happens tomorrow.
Now, Brett, you've been keeping a close eye, and be sure to give everybody your Twitter handle. I've got it here kind of vaguely, but I don't have it
You
exactly.
keep a lot in your mind.
The underscores. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
It's a hot mess up here.
Yeah.
But first of all, let everybody know how they can find you on Twitter. And then secondly, you've been following the RPI chase because obviously Western Kentucky, in addition to Old Dominion and a number of others, have been pretty high on the list. You've been following championship weeks with the Power Fives getting wrapped up last week. What's been your take, that 10,000-foot take of how everything is unfolded?
Sure. First of all, at @BrettW_voice. Thank you for that. That's where you can find me. I'm
we'll
doing
get everybody else too.
Yes, indeed. #BubbleWatch. That's what I'm rolling
That's what you were on.
That's exactly. That's what both of us are on for certain. And no, it's been really fascinating to watch because, as I always keep saying, ODU and WKU both have very strong resumes, strong RPIs. In theory, they should make the NCAA tournament. Forget what committee's bias or not bias might happen. You hope Conference USA finally gets at least one at-large. I think that helps the league no matter who it is, even if it's not your own team. But at the same time, the one thing you can't control is the bid stealers, and that's what I've been paying close attention to. There was one yesterday when Gonzaga got upset in the West Coast Conference, and that takes away a spot, so it pushed everybody down as of this morning. And I've been following ESPNW's bracketology with Charlie Cream because it's really the only one that I see that gets updated all the time.
They need to change that nickname, by the way. It needs to be like the Creme de la Creme or something.
True.
Like that,
This is true.
Hey, ESPN, I usually like to have some ownership, but you can have that if you want to. I'm going to give you that one.
There you go.
Creme de la creme with
de la
Charlie
creme.
Cream.
Yes.
Or cream de la creme, actually, I guess you could say.
Something like that. You got to throw the little accent on there to make it creme, right? But, yeah, so it pushed down ODU and WKU to the last 2 teams of the last 4 in today when Gonzaga lost yesterday. And then there's Boston College, St. John's, UCF, a couple of these teams that are in the first 4 out that you don't know, playing in better conferences, are they going to get the benefit of the doubt, whether or not they should? I mean, ODU and WKU both have, 30-plus RPI points better than some of those teams. We'll see what ultimately happens, but that's what we're going to be watching this week, and I know both of us will be rooting hard for Florida Gulf Coast and Central Michigan, 2 teams that can prevent further bids from being stolen, and then you let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah, because those 2 are pretty safely in at this stage.
No doubt.
Well, and let me say this, from a team in the middle looking up, I would say the cream up at the top of this league right now through this season, you deserve an awfully hard look at it. I'll say that. I don't know how this will play out over the next couple of days, but again, about a month ago when I hit Doug about it, I was serious. Like, look, man, look at what the top of these this league is doing, and we all know, right, this is not the easiest travel league by no means.
Other way around.
And when you look at it from that standpoint, with the consistency that you guys have had to beat each other up at the top, but then in which the way that you dominated the bottom of the league as well, I think speaks to this league. And if people will just take a look, if they'll just take a moment and watch this league. I mean, listen, at Southern Miss, right, we defeated Louisiana Tech twice this year. We don't want to see them in this building. We know what kind of talent they have. We know what kind of team they possess. We know what kind of coach Brooks Store is. I think the coaching level of this league is really, really good. The execution by the players of executing the game plans, especially on these short turnarounds where the travel's not easy, speaks to how well up at the top this league really is. And I'm telling you guys, if y'all would come watch what UAB did on Saturday, you'd be campaigning for somebody to be giving them a look right now as well. I mean, you're talking about a top 5 3-point shooter of all time in women's basketball, and Rachel Childress now.
Yeah, I mean, and she made us look bad too back on January 4th. Not so much her, but the rest of her teammates. That's an efficient offense when they're clicking.
Well, and what makes them so dangerous is
UAB,
they're so good defensively. I mean, UAB, everybody wants to talk about their offense, and they are because they shoot it so well. But Randy Norton teams, and they're not a team, I think they average like 4 steals a game. So they're not a team that's going to get out and press you. They're a team that's going to keep everything in front of them, and they're going to play sound fundamental defense, and that's what they did against us when they held us to 51 points. And we have to play them tomorrow, so I'm hoping they got that out of their system against you guys on Saturday. But again, we talk 1, 2, and 3, but Middle Tennessee, I mean, the Hayes kids, and you mentioned Savage, and I mean they've got the talent to win this thing. I think UAB has the talent and the experience with 5 starters that are seniors, and I think Charlotte. I'm going to tell you what, Charlotte is a very, very sound defensive team. It wouldn't surprise me to see them get to the championship game.
Yeah, and one team in the middle that we mentioned briefly about Katarina Zetz, who, by the way, we had Katarina Zetz in the first team. I don't mind telling you. I mean, I think tremendous leader for the Miners, and UTEP is a team that will get out and press you this year. That's a tremendously different approach that they have this year. It'll be interesting to see if they continue to do that. If, facing the possibility of 4 games in 4 days, right? So
Ariana Gill,
Gill,
great basketball right now,
Yep.
and she looked good. She's looked good all the way through conference play. I think that has been a nice addition for Kevin Baker's team. I know that they're not quite on their game heading in, but you have to respect their ability to defend and her ability to make some things happen all the way around. She's a great rebounder.
And they've been some road warriors too. Normally they control El Paso because it's such a difficult place to get to. But this year, El Paso's not been too kind to them. They've had to do their work on the road. I mean, they came into Reed-Green Coliseum and ran us slam out of Hattiesburg early in the season. That was back in about the
we haven't seen them since
January.
week 2. Week 2 is the last time we saw UTEP, and we beat them, but we were very impressed with them when they left our place.
I just want to know what's going to happen if UTEP actually starts well, because if you think about it, they always play second through the fourth quarters really tough. If they get off the terrible starts and find themselves digging out of holes, if they put it all together early, look out.
So, the Conference USA teams. You mentioned, Jason, that you had a vote, of course, being SID and along with the team. Anybody else get a vote there?
I voted. Yep,
I did.
voted.
Yeah, they did. I didn't get one this year.
I didn't give myself one either. I let somebody else do it.
Oh, that's good. That is really generous.
Thank
of
you.
I will say,
Do you enjoy it?
I will say, actually, Doug, I'll be honest with Doug, I did not have a vote this year, but I do work with our coach.
Sure.
And I'll give head coach Tony Kemper and our staff credit. They've always been able – they've always wanted to kind of pull me in and to that process. And I really have appreciated that. I hope that happens around our – I'm not sure if it does. I hope that happens around our conference because, we see it too. I mean, we're there, especially, those of us who've been home games, road games, we see the conference too. And I'd like to think that happens more. It was something that we talked about this year. Just there were so many returning players, and I think for the most part, the players that were good last year were, they were good again this year.
Yeah.
But that second team, there were some tough calls. We had Whitney Creech on the second team, and we felt like she had that kind of impact this year. So again, just a lot of. I think the reason you're talking about 6 teams in the top 70, right? RPI or that many teams. I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot of great basketball played in the top half of our conference this year, and I think the bottom is still a threat. Anytime you're talking tournament, it's a threat. The ball goes in from deep, it can happen.
Well, I only bring that up not so much to say woe is me, I didn't have a vote. I really that doesn't bother me at all. truthfully. But I just wanted to kind of get you all's take that now most of the all-conference selections have been doled out except for the announcements of Player of the Year, Coach of the Year, and
I think that's it, right?
I think
tomorrow.
Just Player of the Year,
That's
Coach of the Year.
That's coming up tomorrow just as the first round gets going here at the Star. Thoughts on how it all shook out? Was there anybody that you did not see make the team that you felt, you know what, that they had one heck of a year and probably – even though they didn't get the official recognition, definitely deserves a shout-out, at least in front of us 5 peers here.
Well, I'm gonna take the homer role for
Go
a
for
moment.
it.
So I believe one of the crazier snubs has been that Allery Mays hasn't made the all-defensive team. She hasn't done it in the last couple of years. Now, let me say this. I think it speaks. This league, to me, is not an offensive league.
No.
It is a defensive league. I think Malcolm made such a fantastic point a moment ago about UAB, like the points and the threes, and they jump out at you. But then go look at that box score, and we scored 46 points against them in a game of basketball. So I think it speaks to those teams. I will tell you, and I don't mind sharing, Dee Givens was my Defensive Player of the Year vote. That's how good I think she is as far as a defensive stopper. That's not to knock Nancy Mulkey by any means.
No.
It's just to let you know I think it's a guard-heavy league in this league. I think we've got a lot of girls that can go off the bounce and get a bucket, and I'm more impressed when those guards can stop that girl from going off the bounce and doing it. And Allery Mays is one of them. I think there's a whole host of them, but Allery, just off the top of my head, is the first one that kind of jumps off the page at me. I hope tomorrow she'll prove a little bit of maybe that defensive presence in the Ford Center, but we'll see.
Well, to your point, actually, both Jason's kind of – we'll start with you. Just the point about us seeing it, home and road, I think is very true because a lot of times you can get lost in statistics and not really realize what the true impact. And I think Allery Mays, to your point, Jason, is a great example of that because we've seen what she can do in terms of her on-ball defense, in terms of the way she impacts and runs Joy Lee McNellis' style of D, and it's pretty impressive to watch. So I agree with that. And then, I guess to take a slightly homer role too, but you've brought her up too, Whitney Creech. Yep. I mean, somebody that we all saw what she did, particularly in the second half of games throughout this season, has been unbelievable. And there have been games where, quite honestly, a lot of this season offensively, Dee Givens hasn't been at her best. She hasn't been the shooter that she was throughout a lot of last season, and whether it's been, Raneem Al-Jadewi getting it down low, but a lot of times Whitney Creech stepping up in games, hitting big shots when the team needs them. I mean, she put up 13 points when we were down in Ruston in the fourth quarter alone in a game where we were essentially on the ropes at that point. So certainly would have been nice to see her show up there, but like you said, Jason, I mean, this is a great opportunity for all of those players to step up and show the conference what they're really made of this week.
I think steal, we talking defensive player, sometimes steals, the steal category can be a little hard to judge, right? Because sometimes you have players who aren't great defensive players that just pick up a loose ball, go the other way. That's a steal, right?
Well, and you look at somebody like UAB; they're not known for steals, but what they lack in that, they make up for in their ability to be at the right place at the right time and force you into a situation where you're stepping outside of your comfort zone.
Yep.
They've got that, and they've had to key on that a lot more ever since losing Caitlin Thomas. I thought that force, and Randy Norton brought that up as well when I talked to him before they played Old Dominion last week in Norfolk, that priority of making sure that you play good team defense, I think that hit home a little bit more for them when they lost her.
And look, I'll throw a name out there, guys. It'll ring a bell. Angela Vendrell is
Yes.
a fantastic
She is.
basketball player in this league. She won't make a Player of the Year vote, or she won't make an all-conference team, but I'm going to tell you what, she is a basketball player. I was doing some notes ahead of Saturday's broadcast, and, I mean, she's got 38 blocks, 40 blocks, something like that. We're talking about a three-player, two-player out on the perimeter, and you know what? I would laughed about in the third quarter, she made 2 blocks out on the wing on a three-point attempt on Saturday in Bartow.
She is the perfect complement to Maya Barnes.
Yeah.
Barnes on her own is one of the best point guards in the league.
Agreed.
Has been for the last few years. But Vendrell makes them tick because she can start them off on the defensive board. She gets them going. You're right, great shot blocker. Can also force the steals as well. She's got range, but she also has the ability to take you in and is very rangy when she does make that move.
She might be the most underrated player in this league because you look at box scores after a game, and she'll have 10 points and 8 rebounds and 7 assists and 5 steals. She does everything. and she kind of does it quietly. I'm a little concerned. We keep talking about UAB and all their great players, and that's who we have to play tomorrow. But no, she is an unbelievable player, and she's really, I think they missed Kuzmanik early in the year. I think
Yes.
much like Rice really missed Ida Marco early in the year when they were losing some games in the non-conference. I think a lot of times, even if you bring your quote-unquote best players back, Childress and Barnes, Aguma K and Mulkey, there's that one player that, really is kind of the glue that holds everybody together. I think Ida Marco was for Rice last year, and I think Kuzmanik was for UAB last year, and you have to learn how to play without them.
Yep. And Childress, Childress had a really good season, but, I mean, maybe not as good as she had last year in a lot of ways. And yet she's still you're talking about the quickest release in our conference, right? I mean, and Barnes makes it go with her. Somebody that I know when we're playing them, you tell your players, ladies, you got to be right there. I mean, you've got if you're where Malcolm is and she's right there, that's going up. That shot's going up.
She likes that one.
And that is so hard, I think, for players, especially young players, to really understand that. I mean, there can be absolutely no airspace whatsoever, and if there is, she always makes you pay consistently.